Hello everyone. If you are a programmer and you have used JavaScript for writing programs, then you must have used setTimeout in your day-to-day life of coding. So I'm going to share an interesting incident when my setTimeout didn't work as expected. I scheduled a task with some delay, but that task was not executed at the expected time. Before I talk more about this issue, let's understand how setTimeout works behind the scenes. So this is a visual representation of stack, queue, and heap. There is one stack where functions and statements gets executed. There's one queue where functions are queued to be executed, and then we have heap where objects are stored. Yeah, so let's go through this code and understand how objects functions are placed into these things. Okay, we have a function called foo and we have a function called bar. So bar function internally calls foo function. So when calling bar, a first frame is created, which is here, containing bar's argument and local variable. When bar calls foo, a second frame is created and pushed on top of the first frame. When foo returns, the top frame element is popped out of the stack, leaving only bar's call frame. When bar returns, the stack is empty. So this is a very basic example where we have seen that how JavaScript executes the code from top to bottom, how it places the function frames inside stack, and how it executes it in first come first serve basis. So let's see what goes inside queue. This is very interesting. So we all have registered a click event or hover event and set timeout, which we are on which I am making this video. So we always attach a callback with all those events. Yeah. So whenever that event is triggered, the callback function goes into the queue along with a message. And this queue executes those messages in again first in first serve basis, first in first out. So this is the callback function which I'm talking. So this callback function we are attaching with the set timeout along with a timer here, and this set time out callback will go and sit inside this queue whenever time has elapsed, that the given time has elapsed. So for example, if I am giving 300 millisecond, then this callback function will go and sit into queue after 3 seconds. Okay, so now I'll come to the issue which I was talking, yeah, about the set timeout. Okay, so now we know about stack and queue. So we also know that callback function with a message goes inside queue and it gets triggered in first come first serve basis. So now let's see what who is responsible for executing those functions which is lying inside queue. So there's something called event loop which keeps on running in the background. As the name suggests, it keeps on running continuously and it checks the main stack, which is this. It checks whether any function frame is present or not. If something is there, then it doesn't do anything. And as soon as this main stack becomes empty, it takes out the messages from the queue and puts it into the stack so that these gets executed. So if you remember, we talked about click event. So whenever we register a click event, whenever that click event is triggered, the callback function gets stored inside the queue. And since this event loop is already in running state, and it is also checking whether the stack is empty or not. So as soon as the stack gets empty, it takes out that click event callback and puts it here so that it gets executed. Yeah, so now I think you will be able to relate how click event works or how set timeout works. So let's understand a few things about the set timeout function. The first thing we need to know that set timeout is not part of JavaScript. It's not found in the ECMAScript specs or is part of JavaScript engines. This function is actually provided by the web browser. So in our case, we are using Chrome, Firefox, and then Internet Explorer. So all these methods, set timeout, set interval, are part of browser web APIs. Yeah. Okay. So to be more precise, it's part of window object in the browser. Hence, the set timeout function will run normally on a browser, but will not work on other environments of JavaScript like Node. There are other functions like setTimeout which are part of the browser but not JavaScript itself, like console to print logs, document to access elements of HTML, then local storage which allows saving key value pairs in the browser memory. Okay, so after all the theoretical knowledge, let's see how setTime works by coding it. Okay, so we have a normal setTimeout function which takes a callback function as a parameter. Yeah, and inside that function we are printing some numbers, some numbers. So internally what happens is browser web API will start a timer, and so uh, the browser API will start a timer of 3000 milliseconds, and once the timer completes, it will push the callback function to the queue which we just discussed about. And once it is pushed to the queue, event loop will be responsible to for taking it out and pushing into stack where it will be finally executed, and we'll see the numbers getting printed in our console screen. So are you sure that this function will get executed after 3 seconds? Even I was sure when I was implementing my feature. So what I was trying to do is I wanted to start an animation after first animation ends. So I knew that my first animation takes 300 millisecond. So I wanted to start second animation as soon as the first one gets over. So what I did, I wrapped some code inside set timeout with 300 millisecond of delay. But it was not working as expected. It was starting my animation almost after 900 milliseconds, almost triple the time. Yeah, although it was very minimal when you see it visually, but still I got curious to know why this is not working. Although I knew what happens, I knew the theoretical knowledge behind set timeout. I knew how it works, but that time I was clueless why my code is not working. Yeah, so I'm going to share my experience here. And so now we all know that a message from the queue will only get executed only when stack is empty. So if message has arrived to the queue, it doesn't guarantee that it will immediately get executed. Similarly, when browser API sends callback function of set timeout to queue after 300 millisecond, it doesn't guarantee that it will immediately gets executed. It still depends on the uh, stack, whether it is empty or not. So just imagine we have millions of frame here. Yeah, and stack needs 1 or 2 seconds to execute all those frames. For that time, our set timeout callback will be lying here unattended until this gets executed. So event loop will keep checking whether whether stack contains any frame or not. Only if all the frames are executed by the stack, then only it will pull out that set timeout callback function and puts it into stack. So same thing happened with me. Uh, I had uh, I had some code. I was running a loop, tedious loop, which was taking more than 300 millisecond. It was almost taking 1 second. And although I was expecting my code to run after 300 millisecond, but it was not executing as my stack was completely busy running my loop, which was taking 1 second. And that's the reason this callback was lying in the queue unattended. So only after this tedious loop was getting executed, then only it was executing my callback. So that's the reason it was taking 1 second, although I was expecting it to run after 300 millisecond. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to simulate the same problem by writing a small code That code will run for 1 or 2 seconds, and we'll see how the set timeout is behaving. So I've written a small while loop which will run for 2 seconds, and this while loop will break once 2 seconds are over. And at the same time, we have registered for set timeout, and we are expecting our function to be called after 300 milliseconds. So let's see how it behaves without this while loop. Okay, so what is happening here? As soon as so this 1 to 3 is getting printed after 300 milliseconds. So once I refresh, it will get printed after 300 milliseconds. Let's go back, let's uncomment the code, and let's run it now. So what are we expecting now? So we are expecting this to be printed first because we are waiting only for 300 milliseconds, and then sorry, and then this to be printed because uh, this if condition gets executed only after 2 seconds. Yeah, so first this and then this. Let's see how it works now. Okay, okay, so first this got printed and then this. Let's see this again. Same thing. So now we have a point to prove. Although I was expecting this to be printed first, but still this got printed after this because my stack was busy. So it was executing this while loop for 2 seconds, and the stack was busy with the incoming frames. And uh, since it was busy executing this, event loop was not pushing our callback function to the stack, and it was lying unattended for 2 seconds. So now you can think how a bad code can affect your feature. You will never realize that you have written something which is affecting your code and which is not running properly. So it's very important to know what happens in the background, how JavaScript runs. JavaScript is single-threaded, but browser is not single-threaded. It can handle it in a very intelligent way. So as a developer, we should know uh, the behind the background scenes of browsers and JavaScript. That will help us writing good code, efficient code, and bug-free code. I hope you liked this video. You understood what I was trying to bring here. And thanks for watching this. Have a nice day.